You, Professor Elwood, for your nice introductions. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Professor David Elwood, Dean of the John F. Kennedy School of Government, Professor John Thomas, faculty members, students, dear friends. I am honored to be here today to address the distinguished faculty and students of Harvard University. I am impressed with the turnout this evening, and for the student, I hope you are not here today as an excuse to skip class. I must admit, I have wanted to visit Harvard for a long time. Several of my ministers, successful businessmen, and military generals were fortunate to study here. Don't take this the wrong way, but I find it interesting that I did not end up working for people who went to Harvard. It's actually people who went to Harvard who ended up working for me. I am proud that my son, Captain Agus, was able to join this prestigious Harvard program. So now, other than being a loyal soldier in the Indonesian Army, he is also another Harvard student working for me. Several months ago, President Barack Obama made a historic speech in Cairo, seeking to redefine relations between America and Muslim world. As president of the country with the world's largest Muslim population, I would like today to respond to that speech. President Obama delivered his speech at Cairo University, one of the best universities in the Islamic world. I speak today at Harvard, the oldest and most prestigious university in America. And please do not tell people in Princeton and Yale I said this. But our objective is the same, to take a hard look at relations between the West and the Islamic world and to chart a new course forward. It is fitting that I come here after the G20 summit in Pittsburgh. For to me, the G20 is one manifestation of the change taking place in global politics. The G20 groupings, comprising some 85% of the world's GNP and 80% of the world trade, is not just an economic powerhouse, it is also a civilizational powerhouse. The G20 for the first time accommodated all the major civilizations, not just Western countries, but also China, South Korea, India, South Africa, and others, including significantly 3 countries with large Muslim populations, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Indonesia. The G7, the G8, or even the United Nations Security Council does not pose this distinction. The G20 is representative of a multi-civilizational global community. Perhaps this is why the G20 has been successful in arresting a global meltdown. The swift and coordinated actions of G20 economies have started the stabilization of our financial systems and restored confidence, prompting today's early sign of modest economic recovery. We are very pleased that at the close of Pittsburgh, the G20 has been institutionalized and looks set to be the premier forum for international economic cooperation. This comes not a moment too soon, for the world civilization should be properly represented in one defining forum. Civilization. They at once define us and divide us. Is harmony between our civilization truly elusive, so out of reach? Can we just not get along? 60 years ago, I should say 16 years ago, the late Samuel Huntington a son of this university, published an essay proposing that after the Cold War, civilizations, regions, and cultures would become the defining feature of international relations and would constitute the primary cause of conflicts between and within nations. To me, the term clash of civilization itself is counterproductive. If they hear it often enough, some people may think that the word is such and accept it as reality. I don't believe the civilizations are inherently incompatible and prone to conflict when they interact. This is what I saw firsthand at the G20, where nations of diverse cultural backgrounds joined hands to address a common challenge. We spoke different languages through our headphones, but we understood one another. Huntington sought to understand post-Cold War fault lines and warned us of potential turbulence. This is not a trivial reminder. Civilization issues arrive in modern politics. As policymakers, our job is to prevent such prognosis from